5 silent decisions, 7 days, 1 devastating message. And according to the whispers now exploding across royal circles, the message could not be clearer. Prince William may have finally reached the point of no return with Prince Harry. Not because of one interview, not because of one book, not because of one argument, but because years of damage, resentment, and mistrust have apparently hardened into something far colder, something permanent. And what has stunned royal watchers this week is not what William said. It is what he didn't say. No emotional statement, no angry rebuttal, no public attack. Just a sequence of quiet moves that many observers believe sent the strongest signal yet that Harry's road back into the royal fold may already be closed.
Harry and Meghan Markle just have no idea how to do the whole let's not make a terrible situation any worse thing. This is not the time. Like, how stupid are these two? Do you really expect any of us to feel even a scintilla of sympathy about the fact that you lost your grace and favor mansion? Honestly, they're not.
The timing is what makes this story so explosive. While many expected King Charles to remain the primary obstacle in Harry's quest for reconciliation, several royal commentators suddenly shifted attention elsewhere. They began pointing toward William, not the father, the brother, the future king. And according to multiple discussions circulating this week, William appears to be operating under an entirely different set of rules. Rules that are not driven by sentiment. Rules that are not driven by nostalgia. Rules that do not bend simply because someone shares your bloodline. Then came the moment nobody saw coming.
Go on feeling sort of jealous of George, which is not very nice at all anyway, is it? It's horrible to be jealous of a young child who's full of being brought up very, very well and enjoying life. You know, it's just disgusting. Honestly, disgusting. She has made him hate his family. You can have a person in your life who tries to drown you.
That clip landed like a bombshell because it wasn't coming from a longtime critic. It wasn't coming from a social media commentator looking for clicks. It was coming from someone widely viewed as one of Harry's most sympathetic voices over the years. And when someone once considered friendly begins openly questioning the influence Meghan has had over Harry's life, people pay attention. Suddenly, a narrative that had been quietly building behind palace walls seemed to burst into public view. What makes this even more fascinating is the pattern. One incident can be dismissed. 2 incidents can be coincidence. But when story after story appears within the same 7-day period, people begin looking for connections. They begin asking whether all these events are pointing toward the same conclusion. And that conclusion appears uncomfortable. Because while Harry reportedly continues hoping for communication, reports increasingly suggest William may have already made his decision.
I'm really annoyed about this. Prince Harry has such a cheek that he is now piling the pressure on Catherine, the Princess of Wales, to step in and try and save his failing relationship with Prince William. Not understanding that it's over, brother. It is gone. Finito. Just accept it. Catherine tried so hard for so long. You threw her efforts back in her face with your continued attacks, not just on William and Camilla, but on Catherine herself. These days, he tries to take both sides of the argument, but having spoken to both couples or sources connected to both couples, the big revelation from him is that Prince Harry doesn't even have William's phone number anymore. That is, of course, a mortifying revelation for the Duke of Delusion, especially given Wakeford goes on to say that even if he did, Prince William would not pick up.
That statement cut straight to the heart of the controversy. For years, observers framed the royal conflict as a temporary feud, something painful but eventually fixable, something that time would heal. But this week's discussions painted a dramatically different picture. The picture being painted now is not one of brothers preparing to reconcile. It is one of a brother who has quietly stopped waiting for reconciliation altogether. And if that is true, then Harry may be facing a reality far more painful than any public criticism. Because anger eventually cools, silence doesn't. One particularly controversial discussion centered around Harry's reported efforts to find alternative pathways back into family communication. Not direct conversations, not personal meetings, back channels, intermediaries, mutual contacts, friends speaking to friends. And among the names repeatedly dragged into those conversations was Catherine. That detail stunned many royal followers, because if there was one person William is believed to be fiercely protective of, it is Catherine. The same Catherine whose name became entangled in years of public royal drama. The same Catherine who has endured scrutiny, speculation, and controversy while largely refusing to engage engage publicly. Yet according to multiple commentators, Harry's camp continues being linked to hopes that Catherine might somehow help rebuild the bridge. The problem? Many people believe that bridge no longer exists, and if William truly feels that lines were crossed involving Catherine, then the emotional wound may run much deeper than most outsiders understand. The story becomes even more dramatic when discussions turn toward William's children, because this is where many observers believe William's position becomes absolutely uncompromising. Several commentators suggested that William's primary concern is no longer repairing relationships with Harry. Instead, his focus appears to be protecting the future generation of royals, protecting Prince George, protecting Princess Charlotte, protecting Prince Louis. And once a parent begins viewing a situation through that lens, everything changes. Arguments become boundaries. Forgiveness becomes caution. Family becomes security. That shift may explain why so many royal insiders describe William's current approach as cold but deliberate, not emotional, calculated, not reactive, protective. And then another shocking claim surfaced, one involving Harry's old fears about becoming irrelevant within the royal structure. Years ago, Harry openly discussed concerns about his place inside the monarchy as younger generations grew older. At the time, those comments seemed honest and reflective, but critics now point to those remarks as evidence of a deeper insecurity that may have followed him for years, an insecurity that only intensified after leaving royal life, an insecurity that allegedly grew stronger as Prince George gradually moved closer to the center of the monarchy's future. For some observers, this week's commentary felt almost tragic, because they see a prince who once had every royal opportunity imaginable, every door opened, every advantage available, every platform within reach, and yet somehow ended up further from the institution than ever before. Meanwhile, William's public position appears stronger than it has been in years. His family image remains intact. His future role remains secure. His popularity continues holding steady. And perhaps most importantly, he appears increasingly focused on moving forward rather than looking backward. That reality creates an uncomfortable contrast, because while Harry reportedly waits for doors to reopen, William appears focused on locking new ones. And according to several royal commentators this week, the biggest reason may not be Harry himself. The biggest reason may be Meghan. Again and again, conversations return to the same allegation, the same accusation, the same theory that Meghan's influence fundamentally changed Harry's relationship with his family, not temporarily, permanently. Whether fair or unfair, that perception now seems deeply embedded within certain royal discussions. And if William genuinely believes Meghan played a central role in the breakdown of trust between Harry and the royal family, then any future reconciliation becomes exponentially more difficult, because William wouldn't simply be evaluating Harry. The deeper this story goes, the more it stops looking like an ordinary family dispute and starts looking like a complete collapse of trust. Because according to the voices dominating royal discussions this week, William's actions are not being interpreted as temporary punishment. They are being interpreted as a long-term strategy, a strategy designed to protect the future of the monarchy no matter how painful the personal consequences may be. And that is where the Frogmore Cottage controversy suddenly became important again. For years, supporters of Harry and Meghan argued that Frogmore represented a lasting connection to royal life, a symbol that the door was never fully closed. But critics now point to recent discussions suggesting the exact opposite. They argue that every practical tie linking Harry and Meghan to the institution has been gradually disappearing one piece at a time. First, the working royal roles, then the public trust, then the physical connections, then the relationships. And now, according to some observers, even the emotional connection appears to be fading. What makes the situation even more dramatic is that the public conversation has changed. A few years ago, many people viewed Harry and Meghan as victims of an outdated institution. Today, large sections of royal commentary focus on entirely different questions. Questions about accountability, questions about choices, questions about consequences, and perhaps most importantly, questions about whether some wounds can ever truly heal. Because every time reconciliation seems possible, another interview, another allegation, another controversy appears to reopen old scars. Meanwhile, William appears increasingly determined to present a different image. Stability, continuity, duty, responsibility, whether people agree with him or not, that image has become central to his public identity. And that identity revolves around one thing above all else: protecting his family. Not next year, not next decade, for generations. That is why discussions surrounding Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis have become so significant. To William, according to many royal observers, the future matters more than the past. And once that mindset takes hold, decisions that seem harsh from the outside suddenly make more sense from his perspective, because he is no longer asking whether Harry deserves another chance. He is asking whether any risk should be allowed anywhere near the next generation. Then came another moment that intensified the contrast. A widely discussed appearance by Catherine reminded many people why she remains one of the monarchy's strongest assets. While recovering from her own health challenges, she was seen supporting people facing struggles of their own. The images generated powerful reactions, not because they were flashy, not because they were heavily promoted, but because they felt genuine. And commentators immediately contrasted those moments with years of accusations, branding battles, media campaigns, and public grievances surrounding Harry and Meghan. Suddenly, the comparison became unavoidable. One side appeared focused on service. The other side appeared trapped in conflict. One side appeared focused on moving forward. The other seemed permanently tied to the past. Fair or unfair, that perception now dominates much of the conversation. And perhaps that is why William's silence has become so powerful. Silence creates mystery. Silence creates speculation. Silence forces everyone else to fill in the blanks. While Harry continues generating headlines, William often says nothing at all. Yet somehow, those quiet decisions keep speaking louder than any interview ever could. No dramatic confrontation, no emotional public feud, just one message repeated again and again through actions instead of words. The door stays closed, and according to many royal commentators, the most devastating part of all is that Harry may still be hoping for a different outcome. Somewhere in California, the possibility of reconciliation continues hanging in the air. The possibility of a phone call, a meeting, a breakthrough, a moment where years of bitterness finally dissolved. But this week's flood of royal discussions pointed toward a chilling conclusion. They suggested that William is no longer waiting for that moment. He has already moved beyond it. That is why so many observers describe this week as a turning point, not because of a shocking statement, not because of a leaked memo, not because of a dramatic palace announcement, but because 5 separate developments seem to reveal the same underlying reality. A future king quietly deciding who belongs inside the circle he is protecting and who does not. And that leaves one question hanging over the entire royal drama. Is William making the difficult decision necessary to protect his family and the monarchy's future, or is he allowing a family fracture to become permanent? The answer remains hidden behind palace walls. But one thing became impossible to ignore this week. The loudest message was delivered without a single public word. And sometimes, in royal history, silence is the final answer.